Ryan had dreamed of peace all his life. After years of working as a systems engineer on starships, repairing engines that never slept and living inside metal walls that hummed endlessly, he wanted quiet. He wanted a home where he could hear the wind instead of machinery and see the sky without glass between him and the light. That dream finally came true when he moved to Meridia, a young human colony on the edge of the Terran frontier. Meridia was a world that looked peaceful from above. Its surface was covered with soft blue fields, white cliffs, and crystal lakes that reflected the twin suns like silver mirrors. It was a place humans shared with a species called the Trin, tall and slender beings with shimmering scales that changed color in sunlight. The Trin were peaceful and curious, known for their songs and their deep respect for life. For Ryan, it seemed like the perfect place to start again. He bought a small piece of land on the outskirts of a human settlement called Haven Field. The land had a gentle slope and a small stream running through it. With his own hands and a little help from a few colony workers, he built his home. It was simple but strong, made of light gray stone and shining solar panels. Behind it, he built something that reminded him of home on Earth, a swimming pool filled with clear, filtered water. No one on Meridia had ever built one before. Water was precious, carefully collected and purified by machines, but Ryan had worked with the colony's engineers, helped design the filtration system, and earned enough credits to make it possible. The pool was his pride. It was not big, but it was beautiful. Its surface shone like glass under the twin suns, and at night the small blue lights along the edge made it glow like a quiet lake under the stars. For the first few weeks, Ryan enjoyed every moment of it. He would sit on the porch with a cup of tea and watch the reflections move across the water. Sometimes he would swim in the evenings, letting the cool water wash away the dust of the day. The only sounds were the soft wind and the quiet hum of the purifiers. It felt perfect. Then one morning things changed. Ryan woke up to strange sounds coming from outside. It was laughter, light and musical but unfamiliar. He stepped out of his house and stopped in surprise. A group of Trin were in his pool. Their long tails glimmered in the sunlight as they splashed and played. The air shimmered with the soft glow of their scales. They seemed completely happy, completely at home, and completely unaware that they were standing in someone else's property. For a moment, Ryan did not know what to do. The sight was almost beautiful. The Trin looked graceful as they moved, and their laughter was pure joy. But then he noticed the water purifier indicator flashing red. They had touched the sensor nodes, and now the system was struggling to keep up. He cleared his throat and called out politely, "Excuse me, this is my pool. It's private property." The Trin stopped and turned toward him. Their eyes, large and silver, blinked in confusion. One of them, a young Trin with blue-green scales, tilted his head and said in a soft tone, "Water belongs to all, does it not? It falls from the sky for everyone." Ryan sighed. He remembered that the Trin shared everything in their villages. They didn't believe in ownership the way humans did. On their world, there were no fences, no locks, no signs that said, "Keep out." To them, everything was part of one great circle of life. "Yes," Ryan said patiently, "but this water is cleaned and maintained by my own system. It's not natural water. It's something I take care of. It's private." The Trin looked at each other. They didn't seem angry, only puzzled. After a short moment, they climbed out of the pool, water shining on their scales like tiny crystals. They nodded politely and left, their long tails sweeping softly across the ground. Ryan thought that was the end of it. But the next morning, they were back. This time there were even more of them, maybe 8 or 9. They brought small glowing stones and threw them into the pool, making it shimmer with colors. They seemed to think it was a kind of offering, a way of saying thank you. Ryan watched from the window, feeling a mix of amusement and frustration. He stepped outside again, tried to explain once more, but it was clear they did not understand. To them, this was a place of joy and sharing. By the end of the week, Ryan found wet footprints on his porch and bits of Trin jewelry near the water. He sighed, cleaned everything again, and tried to find a way to stop it without being unkind. He installed a light fence, not electric, just a visual barrier that glowed at night. It did nothing. The Trin simply stepped over it as if it were decoration. When he tried to speak to the local Trin elder, the elder listened quietly and smiled. "Your heart builds water. Our hearts find joy in it, he said in his soft, melodic voice. Perhaps your water calls to us. Ryan went home shaking his head. It seemed hopeless. He didn't want to be rude. He had read enough about the Trin to know they meant no harm. They truly didn't understand the idea of personal space or property, but each visit made things worse. His filters had to be cleaned daily. The small algae suppressors were damaged twice. Even his porch started to smell faintly of the mineral oils the Trin used on their scales. One evening, after another long day of repairs, Ryan sat on the porch watching the sunset. The light from the twin suns painted the clouds gold and purple. The air was calm, but inside he felt tired. He wanted peace, but peace refused to stay. He opened his communicator and recorded a message for the colony office, asking if there was a way to install a boundary notice in both human and Trin language. The next day, a small drone delivered a holographic sign. He set it near the edge of his property. It floated in the air, shining gently. The message was simple: private area, please do not enter, property of Ryan. That night he went to sleep thinking the problem was solved. The next morning, the pool was full again. Not only that, but the Trin had decorated it. They had hung shells from his porch and placed small stones in patterns around the water. They had turned his quiet home into a kind of gathering place. Ryan rubbed his face, trying to stay calm. He walked toward them slowly. Friends, he said as gently as he could, this is not a public place. I work very hard to maintain it. A young Trin, probably the same one he had spoken to before, smiled brightly and said, We thank you for your gift. We tell stories here. Your water makes the song stronger. That was the moment Ryan realized they were never doing this out of disrespect. To them it was gratitude. They saw his pool as a shared gift, something beautiful that should not be hidden. He wanted to be angry, but he couldn't. He only felt tired. He let them finish their songs and waited until they left. Then he sat beside the pool, listening to the soft hum of the purifier, and stared at his reflection. His own face looked older somehow. He thought about his life before coming here. On the ships he had followed every rule. Everything was scheduled, organized, predictable. He had wanted freedom, but now that he had it, the lack of control made him uneasy. He whispered to himself, I just wanted peace. That night the stars were bright. He stayed awake for hours, thinking of ways to fix the problem without hurting anyone. He could build a higher wall, but that felt wrong. He could drain the pool, but that would destroy what he loved most about his home. He needed something smarter, something that could teach without punishing. When dawn came, he stood by the window and looked at the pool again. The water shimmered softly in the morning light. It was beautiful, even with all the trouble it had caused. Somewhere deep inside, an idea began to form. A quiet solution. One that might finally make everyone understand. For now, though, he took a deep breath and prepared for another day. The twin suns rose slowly above the horizon, painting the sky blue and silver. The colony stirred awake in the distance, and Ryan, the man who only wanted peace, watched his pool and wondered what kind of message could reach across the difference between two worlds. The next few days on Meridia were calm, but Ryan knew it was only silence before another wave of visitors. Every morning he checked his pool with a quiet hope that maybe this time it would still be empty. For 2 days it stayed that way. The water shone smooth and clear, the purifiers hummed softly, and the lights reflected neatly across the edge. He almost believed the Trin had finally understood his message. On the third evening, as the suns began to set and the twin shadows stretched long across the field, he heard laughter again. That soft, musical sound drifted through the air like wind chimes. His heart sank. He didn't even need to look. He already knew. He stepped out onto the porch. The same group of Trin were there, and a few new ones had joined. They were swimming joyfully, their scales catching the golden light and scattering it in tiny reflections. The sight was beautiful, but all Ryan could think of was the repair work waiting for him afterward. The young Trin he had met before waved at him with a cheerful grin. Ryan of the water home, he said brightly. Your pool sings again today. Ryan tried to stay calm. It is not supposed to sing today. It is supposed to rest. You cannot keep coming here. The Trin tilted his head, his silver eyes full of honest confusion. The water is open. The stars watch all. How can water belong to one being alone? Ryan ran a hand through his hair. He knew they did not mean harm, but that did not make it easier. I built this pool. he said slowly, choosing his words with care. I worked for it. It is a part of my home. When you come here without asking, it damages what I take care of. It also damages the balance of the system. The purifiers break and the sensors overload. The Trin looked at each other. They murmured softly in their musical language. Then one of them said, "We will clean it." "We will help," Ryan smiled weakly. "You cannot clean it. It is delicate. Machines do the work." Again, they didn't seem to understand. To the Trin, effort was always physical, always shared. The idea of a human machine that cleaned itself was strange to them. When Ryan finally convinced them to leave that evening, he was exhausted. He sat by the pool after they were gone and looked at the small scratches on the edge tiles, the disturbed lights, and the broken water sensors. It was not anger that filled him anymore. It was helplessness. He didn't want to be cruel, but he couldn't keep living like this. He spent the next morning working. He replaced the sensors, fixed the purifiers, and checked the lights. He then went to the colony office to talk with a representative. The office was a small metal dome in the center of Haven Field, where both humans and Trin came for trade and discussions. The human clerk looked sympathetic when Ryan explained the problem. "You're not the first to face this," she said. "The Trin don't have private boundaries like we do. It's not that they ignore them. They just don't see them." "I don't want to cause conflict," Ryan said, "but I can't keep repairing my equipment every week." She thought for a moment, then handed him a small projector. "This might help. It's a bilingual warning display. It projects messages in human script and Trin symbols. If they can see both, maybe they'll understand." Ryan thanked her and went home. He set up the projector near the pool. When activated, it projected soft blue light into the air. The words glowed gently. "Private pool. Please do not enter. Respect the builder's space." Beneath it appeared the Trin translation, swirling in graceful patterns of light. The message hovered in the air like a calm voice made visible. That evening, Ryan sat on his porch watching the sign shimmer. The sky was painted with orange and gold. The air smelled clean and sweet. He finally felt hopeful again, but hope did not last long. When night fell, the soft sound of footsteps returned. The projector light glowed brighter as the Trin approached. They stopped before it, their silver eyes reflecting the blue words. For a long moment, they just stared. Ryan watched from the shadows, holding his breath. Maybe this time they would turn away. Instead, the young Trin smiled and clapped his hands. "Beautiful message," he said happily. "It greets us kindly." Ryan stepped out of the shadows, tired beyond words. "It is not a greeting. It is a warning." The Trin looked confused again. "It shines with peace," the young one said. "Warnings burn red. This one sings blue. Blue is calm. It must be safe." Ryan could not help but laugh softly, though there was no joy in it. "You see color and not meaning," he said. "How do I make you understand?" The young Trin's tail swayed slowly. "We understand that you love the water." "We love it too. It brings harmony," Ryan sighed. "Yes, but harmony does not mean sharing everything." The Trin tilted his head. "In our song, harmony is only when many voices join." There was no argument that could win against that kind of thinking. It was not wrong, just different. After they left that night, Ryan sat beside the water until late. The stars above Meridia were bright, forming patterns that reminded him of the constellations of Earth. The reflection of the stars danced on the surface of the pool. He wanted to feel peace again, but his mind would not rest. He started thinking about his father. Back on Earth, his father had built small machines that could fix themselves. "If you cannot teach a person to understand," his father once said, "then teach your creation to speak for you." That memory stayed with him all night. The next morning, Ryan woke early. He made tea and sat by the pool again, watching the sunrise paint the water silver. He had made up his mind. He would not yell. He would not build a fence. He would create something that could explain his feelings better than words could. He spent the day in his workshop. The small room smelled of metal dust and solder. On the table lay his repair drones, small round devices that used to clean the pool automatically. He opened one, adjusted the sensor nodes, and connected it to a hollow emitter. He programmed a sequence of light and sound. The drones would now react when the pool was entered without permission. But instead of sounding an alarm, they would project an image to a peaceful but clear message. He spent hours testing it, adjusting the brightness, rewriting the translation code until it worked in both languages. Each phrase was short, easy to understand. Respect the builder. Respect the water. Respect the boundary. When night came, he stood by the pool and smiled faintly. The water glowed softly in the twin moonlight. The drones floated just below the surface, their lights pulsing gently. The next day passed quietly. He didn't see any visitors, but he knew it wouldn't last. Sure enough, on the following evening, the familiar laughter returned. The group of Trin arrived again, smiling and talking. They stepped into the pool and the water instantly changed color. Blue light rippled outward like waves of energy. Then words appeared in the air above the surface. Human words and Trin symbols woven together in a shining pattern. This pool is a creation of peace. Please honor its maker. The Trin stopped moving. The young one looked around, eyes wide. The light reflected on their faces, calm and beautiful. The drones hovered near the surface, glowing gently. There was no anger, no sound of warning, only a quiet message filled with soft light. One of the older Trin whispered, "It speaks." Another said, "It welcomes with light." But then they read the message again. The Trin language used in the projection carried not only words but emotion patterns, which the hologram expressed through slow color changes. The message slowly shifted from blue to gentle white, a symbol of distance, of asking space politely. The Trin understood at last. Their expressions changed from surprise to quiet thought. The young one touched the water lightly and said in a respectful tone, "We understand, Ryan of the water home." They stepped out of the pool one by one. The drones glowed brighter for a moment, as if bowing in thanks. From his porch, Ryan smiled faintly. His plan had worked. There was no fight, no harsh words, only understanding. Later that night, when he went to check the pool again, it was calm. The water was smooth like glass, and the stars reflected perfectly. He sat beside it for a long time, feeling something new. Not just relief, but hope. Maybe, he thought, this was the way humans and Trin could learn to live together. Not through orders or warnings, but through quiet communication that reached the heart. Still, a small part of him wondered if this peace would last. The Trin were curious by nature. What if they returned again, not to swim, but to learn more about his creation? What if this small act of defense turned into something larger? Something that would draw even more attention? Ryan leaned back and looked up at the twin moons rising over Meridia. The light touched his face softly. He had done what he could. Tomorrow would bring what it must. For now, at least, the night was peaceful and the pool shimmered quietly, glowing with the silent voice of understanding. Ryan spent the next morning observing the pool. The water was calm, clear, and smooth. The drones he had programmed the night before floated just below the surface, pulsing with a soft white glow. The holographic message remained active, projecting the gentle words. This pool is a creation of peace. Please honor its maker. He had hoped the Trin would fully understand by now, but he knew curiosity could be stronger than rules. After breakfast, Ryan went to his workshop. The small room smelled faintly of metal and water vapor. Tools and spare drone parts were scattered across the table. He needed a new plan. The holographic warning had worked, but he realized that it might only be temporary. The Trin were clever and persistent. If they returned with more curiosity, he needed a system that could respond automatically and teach them without causing harm. Ryan began designing a smarter solution. He would combine the drone's cleaning abilities with communication technology. The drones could not only clean the pool but also interact with visitors. He opened a drone casing, examining its sensors and circuits. The small devices had been designed for filtering water, but Ryan saw potential. By adding a few more modules and adjusting the software, he could make them respond to movement, presence, and proximity. He worked for hours, soldering wires, connecting sensors, and writing code. Each drone would now detect when an uninvited guest entered the pool. Instead of creating alarms, the drones would generate a holographic projection of calm human symbols, patterns that explained Ryan's message in both human and Trin language. The lights would pulse gently, the colors shifting from blue to soft gold, signaling that the space was protected and important. Ryan also programmed the drones to create music that accompanied the light display. He remembered the Trin's love for sound and harmony. The notes were simple and soothing, a melody that could be understood by any listener. When the pool was approached by the Trin, the drones would produce the melody and display the message simultaneously, It would be a language of light and sound that was universal, teaching without conflict. While working, Rian thought about the lessons his father had taught him. His father often said that machines could be teachers if humans were patient enough. If you cannot reach someone's mind with words, his father had said, reach their senses with creation. Ryan smiled at the memory. Perhaps his father had prepared him for this day. By late afternoon, the system was ready for testing. Ryan set the drones in the pool and activated the software. The water rippled gently as the drones adjusted to their positions. A holographic display shimmered above the water, projecting the words, respect the builder, respect the water, respect the boundary. The light reflected on the walls of the pool, the porch, and the nearby rocks. The melody played softly, floating in the air like a gentle breeze. Ryan observed every movement. The system worked perfectly. The drones hovered and shifted, following invisible paths, ensuring that the entire pool area was covered. Every visitor would see the message immediately. The colors changed smoothly, alternating between blue, white, and soft green, signaling calm, respect, and harmony. As evening approached, Ryan waited on his porch. The suns began to set, casting long shadows across the field. The Trin arrived as expected, laughing softly and carrying glowing stones. They approached the pool, unaware of the new system. As soon as the first Trin stepped onto the edge, the drones activated. Water ripples formed around their feet and holographic symbols appeared in the air. The Trin froze in amazement. The lights swirled around them like ribbons, creating words and symbols they could understand. At the same time, the melody played softly, echoing in the air with tones that seemed to match the Trin's own musical language. The young Trin he had met before tilted his head, his silver eyes reflecting the soft glow. It speaks with light, he said quietly, and with song. Ryan stepped out from the porch and called softly. It asks you to respect the pool, to respect the work put into it. The Trin looked at each other. They seemed to understand something for the first time. They had felt the light and the sound, and it carried meaning that went beyond their usual understanding. They were curious, but now the curiosity was mixed with respect. The young Trin stepped back. We understand, Ryan, he said. The pool is important. We will honor it. Ryan felt relief wash over him. This was what he had hoped for, and not fear, not punishment, only understanding. The drones pulsed softly, as if nodding in agreement. Over the next few days, Ryan tested the system further. He made adjustments to the colors, ensuring that the shifts were smooth and calming. He added a new function. If a visitor lingered too long near the edge of the pool, the drones would create a gentle ripple in the water, guiding them away without startling or frightening them. Every feature was designed to teach without harm, to show boundaries in a way that both humans and Trin could understand. The Trin visited several times during these days, but each time they paused at the edge, watched the lights, and stepped back. They began to bring small gifts instead of stepping in, shells, glowing stones, and soft plants that grew on Meridia. The young Trin left a carefully woven pattern of stones around the pool, a gift that honored the work Rian had done. Rian smiled quietly each time he saw these gestures. It was not just the system that had worked, but the lessons they were learning together. The Trin were intelligent and kind. They did not resist understanding when it was presented in a way that made sense to them. His patience, combined with technology, had created a bridge between species. One evening, as the sun set, Ryan noticed the young Trin sitting at the edge of the pool, watching the holographic display. Your pool is more than water, the Trin said softly. It is a place of care. It is a gift, Ryan nodded. Yes, that is why I protect it. Not to keep you away forever, but to teach respect for the work that goes into creation. The Trin listened quietly. Slowly, they began to hum their own song, matching the melody of the drones. Ryan watched, amazed. The light and sound merged, creating a moment of harmony that was entirely new. Humans and Trin together, connected through understanding, music, and care. Rian realized something important. The pool had become more than a personal place of peace. It was now a bridge between cultures, a way to teach and learn without conflict. The drones, the lights, the music. Everything had combined to show that boundaries could exist without harshness, and understanding could exist without words. As weeks passed, the system proved itself reliable. The Trin no longer entered the pool without permission. They continued to bring gifts, songs, and stories. The young Trin often visited Rian to learn about human technology and design. They asked questions about the drones, the water purification system, and the holographic displays. Ryan answered patiently, sharing knowledge and learning in return. The pool remained calm and undisturbed. At night, it reflected the twin moons perfectly. The lights from the drones glowed softly, a constant reminder of the lessons shared. Ryan often sat on the porch sipping his tea, feeling a quiet satisfaction. He had created something that could teach and protect, something that would last even if he were not there. One morning, Ryan received a small gift from the young Trin. It was a carefully folded piece of meridian fabric, glowing faintly in the moonlight. A note attached read, "Thank you for teaching us respect." "Your care is understood," Ryan smiled. The message warmed his heart. The solution had worked. It was not force, not anger, not punishment. It was patience, creativity, and respect, human qualities that could reach across worlds. For the first time since the trouble began, Ryan felt truly at peace. The pool was safe, the drones kept watch, and the Trin had learned something valuable about human effort and privacy. But more than that, Ryan had learned something too. Humans could solve problems not by conflict, but by intelligence, creativity, and understanding. The suns rose that day over Meridia, painting the sky in gold and silver. The twin moons reflected in the calm water. The pool shimmered with quiet light. The drones pulsed softly, and for the first time in weeks, Ryan allowed himself to relax fully. He knew the future might bring more challenges, but now he also knew he could meet them. With patience, clever design, and a willingness to understand others, even the most difficult problems could be solved. The pool was no longer just his. It was a place of learning, a place of teaching, and a symbol of what humans could create when they used their minds and hearts together. And as Ryan watched the horizon, he realized the lesson was bigger than the pool itself. Respect, understanding, and care were tools more powerful than walls or fences. And with them, humans could build bridges across the stars. Weeks passed since Ryan had activated his new smart system. The pool was calm, clear, and perfectly maintained. The drones moved silently beneath the water, their soft light pulsing gently. Holographic messages projected above the pool reminded anyone nearby to respect the space and the effort that Ryan had put into it. The Trin visited often, but now they waited at the edge of the pool, leaving gifts and observing rather than swimming. Ryan noticed something remarkable. The young Trin he had met first, named Piri, had begun studying his machines carefully. Piri asked questions about the drones, the water filtration system, and even the holographic projectors. Ryan answered patiently, showing Piri how the circuits worked, how sensors measured water quality, and how the lights and music combined to communicate without words. Piri listened closely, his large silver eyes wide with fascination. "You have made something beautiful," Piri said one evening. "It is not just water." "It is a story," Ryan smiled. "Yes, it is a story of care. A story of effort. A story of respect," Piri nodded slowly. "We do not fully understand your world, but we can learn." Over the next few days, Ryan began to realize that teaching the Trin about human concepts was as important as protecting his pool. He designed small lessons to help them understand. He created models of machines that showed how work and care could create lasting effects. He demonstrated the careful measurements required to keep water clean. He explained the idea of personal property in simple terms, how humans value things they create and how respect for effort builds trust. The Trin listened attentively. They were intelligent, patient, and curious. They asked questions about things that seemed ordinary to humans but were new to them. They wanted to understand how humans planned, calculated, and measured time. They wanted to know why a pool required so much care and why it mattered to one person. Ryan realized that teaching them was not just a one-way process. He learned about the Trin as well. He discovered their songs told stories about the land, about rivers, and about life. Their scales could reflect feelings, changing color and subtle patterns that humans could only begin to notice. He watched Piri demonstrate how the Trin celebrated growth, friendship, and harmony with these songs. The melodies were complex, but they carried meaning beyond words. One afternoon, as the sun shone high in the sky, Piri placed a small crystal near the pool's edge. "We want to give something back," he said softly. The crystal glowed faintly in sunlight, changing colors as it reflected the pool water. "It is a token of learning. We will remember the care you take." Ryan felt warmth in his chest. It was not just gratitude, it was understanding. The Trin had learned something from him, and in return he had learned something from them. Mutual respect had grown from conflict. The neighbors noticed the change too. Other Trin families began to visit the edge of the property, bringing gifts, stories, and songs instead of splashing in the water. They sat quietly, observing, learning about Rian's careful work and the lessons in patience, effort, and respect. Slowly, the colony began to see the pool as a symbol of cooperation rather than conflict. Ryan's solution had become more than a pool. It had become a place of learning. Humans and Trin shared knowledge, respecting each other's differences while celebrating common curiosity. Each evening, the pool reflected the twin moons, glowing softly from the drone's light. The melodies played, not as warnings anymore, but as background for shared observation and conversation. One evening, Piri spoke in a serious tone. "Ryan, your ways are different from ours, but we have learned your meaning, and we wish to share something with you." Curious, Ryan watched as Piri led a small group of Trin to a nearby clearing. There they had gathered plants, stones, and small objects from the land. They carefully arranged them in a circular pattern around a small pond. "This is our gift," Piri said. "It is a place of sharing and peace inspired by your pool." Rian walked closer. The arrangement was beautiful. Each stone was placed with care, each plant positioned for harmony. He realized that the Trin had applied the lessons they had learned: effort, attention, and respect. They had created something human in concept, but Trin in style. It was a bridge between their worlds. "You have taught us," Piri continued, "not with anger, not with force. You have taught us with care and intelligence. We will honor this lesson always." Ryan smiled, feeling pride and relief. The struggle of the past weeks had grown into something meaningful. The pool had become a teacher, not just a protector. Over the following weeks, humans and Trin began small projects together. They repaired equipment, built miniature gardens, and experimented with small holographic displays. Ryan helped show the Trin how machines could aid their work. Piri and other Trin taught humans songs, patterns, and harmony of movement that the drones could not create alone. They worked together, creating systems where understanding was the first goal and cooperation naturally followed. The pool became a meeting point for these lessons. Children of both species gathered at the edge, observing the lights and sounds. They learned about water, about care, and about respecting effort. They practiced using the drones to communicate in both human and Trin symbols. Ryan watched them quietly, feeling joy he had never known before. One night, after the suns had set and the twin moons rose, the young Trin approached him again. "Ryan," Piri said, "we want to ask something. Can humans and Trin create a larger pool together, one that all can enjoy and learn from?" Ryan thought carefully. The idea was tempting. A shared pool could bring both species closer. It would honor the lessons learned from conflict and from patience. It could be a symbol of understanding for the entire colony. "Yes," Rian said, finally smiling. "We can do that. But it will require planning, care, and teamwork." "Are you ready for that?" Piri's eyes gleamed. "Yes, we have learned from your pool, and we want to continue learning." The next morning, Rian and the Trin began designing the new pool. They combined human technology with Trin knowledge of the land. The pool would use renewable water sources, purified automatically. Holographic displays would teach both species about water care, effort, and cooperation. It would be a place of harmony, not just fun. As work began, the colony noticed the change. Trin and humans worked side by side, learning from each other. Laughter, conversation, and music filled the air, but this time in a different way. A shared joy, not the previous uncontrolled excitement. The colony started to see the pool as a symbol, a teaching tool, and a meeting place. Ryan sometimes paused during the work, looking at the original pool. It remained untouched and perfect. The drones glowed softly, maintaining the calm, reflecting the light of the twin moons. He realized that what he had built was more than a pool. It was a lesson for everyone. Patience, intelligence, and care could solve problems that force never could. The Trin continued to visit the original pool, but now they did so with understanding. They brought gifts and observed lessons instead of splashing and playing. They respected Rian's effort, not because they were afraid, but because they understood its meaning. Rian felt satisfaction that went beyond personal peace. He had created a bridge between worlds, showing that humans could teach without anger, that intelligence and care could communicate across species. The pool was no longer a private space only for him. It was a living example of respect, learning, and shared growth. One evening, as the suns dipped below the horizon, Piri and Rian sat together at the edge of the pool. "Your work has changed us," Piri said quietly. "We see your care. We hear your message. We will teach others to understand the same." Rian nodded, feeling proud. "That is all I wanted. Not to stop you from enjoying water, but to show that respect and effort matter." The Trin nodded in agreement. Silence fell over the pool, not awkward or tense, but calm and peaceful. The drones glowed softly, their lights pulsing gently. The water shimmered under the twin moons. Rian realized that everything he had built, the pool, the drones, the lessons, had created something lasting. For the first time in a long time, he felt completely at peace. The original conflict was resolved, not through punishment, but through teaching, creativity, and understanding. The Trin had learned about human effort, and humans had learned about Trin perspective. The pool had done more than reflect light. It had reflected a shared future. It had become a symbol of what humans could achieve when intelligence, patience, and care were applied to a problem. And Rian understood something important: that the greatest solution was not to force others to obey, but to help them understand. The colony slept under the twin moons that night. The pool glowed softly in the quiet. Rian sat on the porch, sipping tea, and felt a deep sense of accomplishment. The lesson had been shared, and the world was better for it. The next morning, Rian woke early. The air outside felt heavy and strange. He stepped into his backyard and saw faint burn marks near the trees. The ground still shimmered slightly from where the alien craft had landed during the night. His pool stood still, but the water had a faint blue glow under the sunlight. It looked peaceful, but Rian knew that peace would not last. He understood the warning from Kalor. Others would come for the aqua core. Rian returned to his basement and checked the control panels he had built. The aqua core was stable, but still sending out low-level energy signals. He tried to reduce the frequency, but the device refused to respond. It seemed almost alive, as if it understood that danger was near and was preparing for defense. Rian sighed and decided to make his home ready for whatever was coming. He reinforced his fences, added small energy barriers using his old alien power cells, and even placed hidden scanners around the pool. By afternoon, the sky began to darken, though no storm was forecast. The light seemed to fade in an unnatural way, and strange silver clouds formed above his neighborhood. His neighbors came out of their houses, confused by the sudden change. Rian stood quietly and watched. He could feel the pressure in the air. He knew that a ship was approaching. The aqua core glowed brighter in response. Soon the clouds split apart, revealing a small alien scout ship descending slowly over the houses. People screamed and ran inside. The ship hovered silently above Rian's yard, its metallic surface reflecting the glowing pool. The ship opened a hatch and 3 tall figures floated down, wearing thin armor that shimmered like glass. Their eyes were bright green and their faces calm but cold. Rian stepped forward. His heart was racing, but he kept his voice steady. "You are not welcome here," he said. One of the aliens spoke in a flat tone. "You possess an object that belongs to us. Hand over the aqua core and we will leave your world untouched." Rian shook his head. "This device is under my control. It has harmed no one. It belongs to no one now. It is part of my home." The alien tilted his head. "Humans were not meant to use our technology. You do not understand the power you hold. If you resist, we will take it by force." The moment the alien raised his hand, the pool reacted. Waves rose high and spread out like arms. The water turned bright blue and formed a wall between Rian and the aliens. A deep sound came from the pool, a soft hum that shook the ground. The aliens fired small beams of energy, but the water absorbed every strike. The aqua core had activated its defense state. Rian ran to his control panel and connected his system directly to the aqua core. He could feel the vibrations through the wires. It was like a heartbeat. He adjusted the energy flow and directed it toward the ship. The water shot upward in a spiral, hitting the alien craft. The impact threw sparks across the hull. The ship tilted slightly but stayed in the air. The aliens tried again, firing a stronger blast. This time the pool responded faster. The water rose like a living creature, wrapping around the beam and reflecting it back. The energy struck the ground near the aliens, making them step back. Rian felt the pool growing stronger. He realized that the Aqua Corps was not only defending him but learning from each attack. His neighbors watched from their windows, eyes wide with fear and amazement. The same people who once laughed at Ryan for being strange were now witnessing something beyond imagination. One of the neighbors, Mira, ran toward him and shouted, "Do you need help?" Ryan shook his head. "Stay back. It's not safe." The leader of the aliens raised both hands, summoning a bright orb of light. The orb grew larger and brighter until it looked like a small sun. Ryan knew that if it hit the ground, it would destroy half the block. He quickly sent a mental signal through the link he had built with the Aqua Corps. "Now," he whispered. The pool reacted instantly. A massive column of water shot upward, surrounding the orb. The water began to spin, cooling and compressing the energy until the light faded. When the column fell back into the pool, the orb was gone. The alien leader stared in shock. Impossible. The Corps should not obey a human. Ryan took a deep breath. "Maybe you don't understand humans. We protect what is ours. You built this device to control water. I gave it a reason to care." The alien's expression changed slightly. "Then you have changed it. That makes you dangerous." The ship above began to hum again, charging a heavy weapon. The noise was loud enough to shake windows. Ryan looked up and saw a long beam forming under the ship. He had no time to think. He sent every bit of power from his home system into the Aqua Corps. Lights in his house went out. The street went dark. All energy focused on the pool. The water began to rise higher than before, twisting into a huge figure made entirely of light and water. It looked like a guardian, tall and shining. The figure raised its arms and slammed them toward the sky. A pulse of blue light burst outward, hitting the ship. The entire craft flickered and lost control. It spun sideways and crashed behind the forest, sending waves of dust into the air. The three aliens on the ground staggered. One of them tried to attack again, but the water figure reached out and surrounded them. Instead of hurting them, it lifted them into the air gently and placed them near the wreck. The leader looked at Ryan, who stood calm and steady. The alien gave a slow nod. "You have proven something today, human. Your species learns faster than we thought." Ryan replied quietly, "We learn best when someone pushes us." The aliens entered their damaged craft, which slowly lifted off and disappeared into the sky. The clouds above began to clear and sunlight broke through again. Ryan stood by the pool as the water slowly calmed. The glow faded until only the gentle blue remained. He felt a wave of relief wash over him. The Aqua Corps had gone silent again, its job done. The neighbors began to come out of their homes, cheering and clapping. They surrounded Ryan, some thanking him, others still speechless. Mira stepped closer and said softly, "We all saw what happened. You saved us." Ryan smiled a little. "I only wanted to protect my home. Looks like it ended up protecting everyone." He turned back toward the pool and whispered, "Good work, my friend." The water rippled once, as if answering him. In the following days, life slowly returned to normal. The government sent investigators to study the strange event, but Ryan gave them little information. He claimed it was a small meteor impact that caused electrical interference. They didn't believe him completely, but without evidence, they left him alone. His neighbors began treating him differently. They no longer sneaked into his yard or joked about his pool. Instead, they helped him repair the damage caused by the crash. They painted the fence, cleaned the yard, and even offered food as thanks. For the first time in years, Ryan felt like part of the community. One evening, as he sat beside the pool, he looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, Kaylor and his people were watching. He wondered if they had seen what he did. A soft ripple appeared on the water's surface, forming faint glowing symbols. It was a message from Kaylor projected through the Aqua Corps. The words read, "You defended your world well. Remember, power is safest in hands that understand peace." Ryan smiled and nodded. "I will remember." The message faded, and the pool returned to its calm state. From that day forward, the Aqua Corps remained quiet, only reacting when danger approached. It was no longer just a piece of alien technology. It had become something new, a blend of human will and alien creation. Ryan called it Guardian. The name felt right. The neighbors often gathered near his house in the evenings, telling stories about the night the sky turned blue and the pool fought off an alien ship. Children played near the fence, pretending to fight aliens of their own. Ryan watched them with a smile. He had once been just an engineer tired of rude neighbors. But now he had become a quiet protector of his street. Sometimes, late at night, he would place his hand on the water and feel a faint pulse under the surface like the heartbeat of a friend. It reminded him that even simple people can do great things when they stand their ground. Humanity might not have the technology of the stars, but it had courage, creativity, and the will to protect what it loved. Rian leaned back in his chair, listening to the calm sound of water. The pool sparkled under the moonlight, peaceful and alive. He whispered, "Let's hope we never need to fight again." The water rippled softly as if agreeing with him. The world slept quietly around him. Above, the stars shone bright, and among them a faint blue light blinked once and vanished. Ryan knew that somewhere out there the aliens were still watching, but now they would think twice before underestimating humans again. And so, the man who once only wanted peace and privacy had shown the universe what humans could do when pushed to protect their home. He had proved that humanity's strength was not in weapons or machines, but in spirit and unity.